We are kicking off the second season of It's Simple, you know, with an insightful discussion with Sam Cooke, CEO of Esports Insider, one of the most influential esports-related media outlets in the world. Some of the topics we tackle are scaling your business up in unexpected ways. We discuss why Singapore and Iceland are so important to the esports ecosystem. And we even veer off into more practical territory, like should you go to a UK university? And we even put our philosopher hats on and discuss whether you can actually plan for what the future has in store for you. I'm Katarzyna Dąbrowska, and it's simple, you know?
Can you just tell me really quickly about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, of course. I started off as a journalist. So I started off writing like post-university. I did the whole traveling bit and I lived abroad for a few years.
Oh, where'd you live?
Taiwan, Hong Kong, out in Lisbon for a while, like a bit like here, there and everywhere.
Because you're like some kind of British, right?
Yeah. So Essex, living in London now, but Essex near London, like born and bred.
Okay, got it. Let's see if you can guess mine after a little while.
I'm here in Australian.
Yeah, got it. Got it. Yeah, so you lived like overseas, abroad. You were writing about stuff.
Yeah, and so then I was writing about sports, and I was writing like betting, like B2B gambling industry stuff, right? Paid the bills. And that was for a company called SBC.
And it was betting for sports or like? Yeah,
mostly sports betting industry.
Right.
Yeah, like B2B stuff. Some to consumer, like football fan stuff to like drive traffic, but mostly B2B. Like there's a new CEO at Betfair or whatever. Okay,
hang on. Explain this to me because, this podcast is called It's Simple, so I'll sometimes butt in with things that for me are new or unclear and I think could be interesting to people because I understand the concept of, going to the races and betting on a horse. Sure. Like going to the casino and playing some poker or blackjack, right? What is a B2B betting?
So, So they just cover, like SBC covers the business of the gambling industry. So like when, if Betway sponsor a football team or if there's a new appointment at Paddy Power, or if Brazil, like today or yesterday, Brazil passed a bill which regulates sports betting in that country, which is big news for Let AM. But all that kind of stuff. And I was writing for them about generic sports betting industry stuff. And then I pitched to them in about 2014, like 15-ish time to start covering esports betting from an industry perspective. And that was like very early days. Like it still is fairly early days. So that was around like 7 years ago or so. I mean, that was when like Pinnacle offered it as a bookmaker, but hardly any other bookmakers did, like if any, to be honest, of note anyway.
And was there a lot of betting in the esport? Like how did that?
No.
No. I didn't even have to finish my question.
Like relatively speaking, compared to like football and such, it's still esports as a whole is still minuscule, right? But like in certain territories now, like in Brazil, for example, and in other places, esports has like, and again as a whole, so like that's mostly CS:GO, some Dota, some League, and a few others, but mostly CS:GO, at least in the Western world. It's like top 5, so like football, tennis, cricket. I think maybe boxing is around there normally, and then esports in total volume of all the esports is
cricket. No way. Cricket's like in the top 5 of betting. Am I understanding correctly? Half the world doesn't know what fucking cricket is.
Yeah, innit? But that's like that's esports as a whole. But so it started from there, and then I didn't want to write about betting for forever, and so pitched to them to start that we could do what they do now still for the betting industry, for esports more broadly. And then ESI was born out of that basically. And so co-founded that with the owners of SBC.
So ESI is the Esports Insider. That's the abbreviation you use. Just wanted to clarify that.
Exactly.
Okay. And so when did that happen?
That we officially launched that in August 2016. I'm just going to turn the heater off.
Okay, so it's been no, not 5. I can't do my math. In my mind, it's still 2011. You know what I mean? And 2018 was like a year ago, and 2004 was 10 years ago. And basically, yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, innit?
Okay, so it was like 7 years ago, basically.
Yes. Yeah. Coming up to.
And what was that journey? Like, what did that look like, and what does it look like now?
I mean, we started off as like we spent the first year as just the news site, right? Like just the first year as establishing the brand and like who we are and what we do and reaching out to as many people as we can and just building a name for like esports-insider.com in terms of esports business coverage. Then about a year after that, like 2017 onwards, we started doing the B2B events, and we started those at Fnatic. Mm-hmm. So we had 4 events in total at Fnatic's place in East London, and they were good. They were well attended, like nice events, but early days.
And how many people approximately were coming to these events?
So those ones were about 100 people or so, like 75 to 100.
So for those days was like solid-ish.
Yeah, exactly. Early days, that was like the capacity of the venue, right? And like that was very cheap tickets, etc., and like one panel or one talk, like one session with a few speakers.
Okay, so let's clarify actually what events mean as well. So were they like tournaments, or like you said, because you just mentioned panels and speakers, so was it kind of like a mix of things?
Yeah, ours we have the WFH League now, which I'm sure we'll chat about later, but for ESI, we've always focused on the B2B conference events. So that's not tournaments, but that's events like at which people are networking, and there's panels and workshops and stuff and talking about like different facets of the of esports as an industry, right? And how the CSGO ecosystem is developing, or like a brand case study that sponsored a League of Legends team, or investment into the space, like numerous topics.
I'm glad we sorted that out, because in my head I was picturing like an esport tournament or something like this.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. When most people say esports events, that's what they think of first, naturally, right?
Well, this is why I really like to define the words I use with each guest, because everyone has, their own definition of a word kind of thing. So, okay, so you guys did more like panels and conferences where people like the experts from the industry came together. And
exactly that. So everyone from like investors, investment groups, through to, we've had the likes of like KitKat, Adidas, Bumble, like MasterCard, you name it, speak at the events and for sure attend, and like all the sports rights holders as well, right? Because like we've seen so many sports properties enter esports in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think David Beckham bought an esport team.
Yeah. He's one of the backers, or one of the investors, stroke faces of Guild, who are a team based here in London.
Yeah. I want to go back a little bit, not that little bit, but because you were talking about the different brands like KitKat, etc. So what were you doing with these brands at that time?
So we've had, KitKat was one of them. Like KitKat have been quite heavily involved in the League of Legends esports ecosystem, right? Like sponsoring some of their pretty top tier events. And I think recently that partnership was extended for another 2 years or such.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess our events are, on the one hand, a place where brands like KitKat and numerous others can learn about the industry and like listen to the sessions, ask questions, like no stupid questions type thing, and figure out how it makes sense for them and where they might be involved. Because obviously esports is still very new. It's still a new space. It's still a huge learning curve for most people, right? And like these brands,
there's no playbook.
Yeah. And like before they're committing any significant spend or any spend at all, or putting their name to something, they're not going to do it without understanding who the audience is, who they're reaching and such. And obviously esports is just a term, it's an umbrella term, right? Like why they've been in the league as opposed to CS, or why they do Rocket League instead of Hearthstone or whatever. So our events are where they come to learn, like meet the right people and find out about those opportunities.
Yeah. So like kind of like case studies, like, okay, I have a brand, I don't know, I'm the marketing director of Adidas, for example. Like, why do I want to do esports? And now I can find out. Okay, so you guys kind of did that kind of thing. That's actually super cool, because it's quite different to anyone I've spoken to before on this podcast. Everyone was, not everyone, but there was a lot of events, like in terms of tournaments and stuff like that. So how did it evolve from then? You were doing these kind of conferences in 2007, and then?
Yeah, so 2017, we started those off in like a small way, right? And they were at Fnatic when they had their bunker space in East London. 2018, we kind of outgrew that space and started to host proper conferences as opposed to like networking events, if you will, with like numerous sessions, speakers, like dinners, workshops, you name it, bigger venues.
You were moving up in the world.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. And they were good. And like we hosted them in everywhere from Manchester to London, of course, we had a show in New York City in 2019.
Wow.
And then we had big plans to expand more. In 2020, we had our first show planned in Asia. We had a second New York show booked, and then
2020 happened.
So yeah, that changed everything significantly for us.
Because Esports Insider, it's also like a news site. You do events, but you do news. So with 2020, not everything went to hell, for you guys, but what did change?
I mean, and the news side continues to like grow and go from strength to strength, I guess. And whilst the event side of it, we shifted to the ESI digital events. So we had our ESI digital series, and they were good. They were really good and like well received, but attendance, generally speaking, declined over time, right? Like 8 months into lockdown, I think every law firm, every agency, like everyone and their dog were running some kind of digital webinar or event, right? And that's grand.
Everybody was live streaming everything.
Yeah. And that's good. There was good and there was bad and there was in between. But obviously, regardless, people get tired of that, and there's that fatigue, right? And there was that fatigue anyway of like Zoom endless meeting.
Totally, because you're totally like, I mean, my entire job changed fully digital, which actually I'm super grateful for now. But yeah, I have fatigue because not only do I have, everyday clients and calls and podcasts and whatever, and then I've got my friends. You got to have like your friends, and they're in your phone too. So yeah, I was not interested in doing any.
It was endless, right? I lived with like a close mate, like an old mate from school throughout it, and we were fine, right? Like not like too socially isolated or whatever. We were like lucky, but then he's a teacher, and so he was teaching online throughout every day, and like that, like patience of a saint. But I was obviously on calls, like endless calls, stroke like doing these events and such every day, and then on Fridays we'd be on like Zooms, like our mates that would be like, oh, let's come and do a whatever Zoom. And it was like, even that was just like, it's just another, just
another screen.
Yeah. So it's tough. But yeah, like business wise, we focused a lot more on the growing out and further developing the media business and third arm of the company, which we had then, but had barely been developed, which was ESI Connect. And ESI Connect is our agency arm.
Okay.
So everything from consultancy and advisory services, like for companies new to esports wanting to understand it, investment companies exploring options, through to campaign delivery and brokerage. So we've developed that, and that's in a good place now. And yeah, the media business developed a lot. And like, long story short, we didn't furlough anyone, we didn't have to let anyone go, and we grew the full-time and freelance team within the last couple of years. So we got through it, but yeah, it changed things for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely been a shift the last couple of years. Yeah. Like on one hand, it feels like it went like that, and on the other hand, it feels like 10 million lifetimes.
Exactly. Yeah. I was just saying, like I agree, like getting back to events now. Like I was at an event last week called PGC, and like seeing people that you haven't seen.
No, you were at a real life event.
Yeah, but like seeing people you haven't seen in ages, but it's like having no concept of time, whether like I didn't see, like it feels like 6 months ago, but also like 4 years ago since I've seen them, right?
So what kind of event was it? Like what was it? What did you do? What did you do? Who did you see?
Yeah, that was it. It's called Pocket Gamer Connects, that one. So it's like in London, it's one of the biggest like mobile gaming focused conferences as well. So that, yeah, they're obviously mobile gaming is.
I wanted to talk to you about this actually. This is interesting because mobile gaming is not treated seriously. I don't think yet. I mean, it's probably beginning if there's a conference, but it's not really like when we look at stats and they say that 51% of all people are gamers and then a huge percent of that is like women, but sometimes they make jokes that it's like, yeah, it's like, mums who are playing Candy Crush, for example, right? But Candy Crush is making bank, like they are making bank, right? So I read this quote from you somewhere, and I'm going to paraphrase you really badly, and it was something like about the definition of esports, right? That like, why do we even need a definition? So if we were to define mobile gaming in some way, how would we do that?
Yeah, anything, like literally anything, right? Like this. So this conference was not. There was a little bit of esports and competitive gaming stuff sprinkled in, so to speak, but it was very much about like the broader mobile gaming ecosystem, which is now huge, right? Because of how accessible mobile is and how many mobile players there are worldwide. So I think mobile gaming, when I say that, is like literally any game that can be played on a mobile device, whether that's tablet or.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, not everyone has a computer or a laptop, especially in the poorer countries, but everyone's got a mobile phone.
The vast majority, right?
Yeah. And so what kind of games are discussed, or what is discussed at like a mobile gaming conference? Like what games are they talking about? What's kind of the big thing? What's interesting?
Well, I was focusing more on like the esports side of it. So there were 4 tracks running alongside one another, right? Like there was one of the sessions was by a company called Bidstack, a technology company based in London who have an in-game advertising technology product as like their lead product or one of their key products.
So they're annoying people that interrupt me when I'm playing.
So they're actually the ones that are trying to stop that.
Oh, okay. So we like them.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you mean. Like the ads that they're not the ones that make those like pop-up ads interfere with the gameplay. They've developed technology which is very much at the core of like how they approach the product and building it, is that the ads should be natural to the game and should be non-obstructive to the player. Either they improve their gameplay and like it's the gaming experience because it's natural and maybe it's funny or it's cool or it fits.
Oh, thank God. It's so annoying because I've got Tetris on my phone, which I play like, once in a blue moon if I'm like, need to pass a couple minutes and I feel like listening to that Tetris music. Anyway, I hadn't opened Tetris on my phone maybe for 3 months, and obviously it updates and new things happen. And I was playing it, and before I could even play it, it showed me an ad for 1.5 minutes. And then it did like a countdown of 10 seconds where I could click on it and download this other game. And I was like, are you people for real? Like this can't, like, I'm like so close. If it wasn't for the Tetris music, I was this close to deleting it. I was like, I'm not gonna act out in emotions because I'm older and wiser now, but that was not cool. I was not happy about that.
And that's it. Like mobile games for a long time, obviously free to play, like they need to find a way to monetize them. But those ads have been awful, right? And that Bidstacker is kind of the solution to that. Well, that's what it's working to be, is like, so the ads like there's a game called Tennis Clash, and like you'll see the Marriott logo like on the tennis court throughout. So it's natural and part of like the world of the game. But you as a player aren't like, I don't want to like watch this for 30 seconds and click the tiny little X in the corner, right? That's what they're trying to prevent and offer an alternative solution to for developers.
Okay, so that's awesome. I judged them too harshly at the beginning.
Yeah, no worries. I think people hear advertising and they immediately get like,
Yeah, I'm like, those guys. Okay, no, that's cool. Well, I mean, look, that's what Streamly does. Like the advertising is in game. It's not unobtrusive, and I don't watch streams myself, but because of my like connection with Streamly and the work that I do with them, it's I've seen a lot of the case studies and things like this, and I'm super impressed, with the things that are done. So if someone's doing that for mobile games, that's cool. And I'm just saying, hey, in streaming, maybe we should be doing that. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's it, right? Like mobile, PC, console too. Yeah, mobile obviously being the obvious one where most games are free to play. So the devs need to find a way to make some money out of them.
Yeah. I mean, like I'm going to be really embarrassed to admit this, but I've literally I've been playing Candy Crush on and off since for 10 years, probably, and and I'm usually not this kind of person, but in times of desperation, I've actually paid for things on Candy Crush. It's, tiny amounts of money, but I've done this and I'm super anti that kind of stuff,
Same. But they know how to get you. They know how to I was playing another game recently called Tennis Arena, another mobile tennis game. And you get 3 free games a day. And then you can pay for coins, which unlock more. And oh man, I was like, oh, I'll never do it. I've done it a couple of times.
But in Candy Crush, maybe I shouldn't say this because they'll fix it. You can change the date on your phone,
oh, really?
And then it resets the lives, which is really cool. But in moments of desperation, I have, especially, in those moments where, I don't know, you're not having a great time in life. And so you're just escaping into this, it's not even a good game, because I'm a gamer, I finally bought myself a PlayStation. Now I can play real things. Yeah. No one could talk to me for the month of January. I was out. I was playing Assassin's Creed. I was gone.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get Elden Ring this.
I'm waiting for this too. Elden Ring. I'm excited about this. Okay, we've covered the games. What are the plans for you guys now? With 2 years being kind of a shift, totally a shift, and things are coming back, events are coming back. So what's the plan?
We had a good ESO London conference in November last year, and it was well attended, really well attended, more than we hoped for in the end, numbers wise. So it was good. Obviously less international than previous. But yeah, this year, our 4 or 3 at least big shows that we've got confirmed are Washington, DC in May, Singapore in July, and then London for our biggest show in September. So
nice.
Yeah, things are looking really good for all 3 of those, to be fair. So just excited to be back on the road again, to be doing the proper in-person shows again. As I said, we had our first Asia show booked, or at least very close to booked just before COVID. We had our second New York show booked, and then that put pay to those for a while. So yeah, it'll be good to be doing the international ones again, because it's been a very long time since we've run an international event.
Yeah. And so again, these are the kind of conferences and panels and that kind of thing.
Exactly that. Yeah. Washington, DC will be a bit different as well, actually. There'll be one traditional conference day, panels, presentations, talks, workshops, networking, socials and such. There'll be one day of embassy tours. So obviously it being in DC, we're working with Events DC and Cultural Tourism DC. And so there'll be a series of tours with those governments, embassies.
Literally going to the embassies.
Yeah. So we'll bring all our attendees of the event to the embassies, and they'll present how they approach esports and why. And put on some hospitality. There'll be a networking event at each one. Should be quite cool.
Wow.
It's a new thing, right, for the industry, never done before. So should be quite exciting.
An embassy. Yeah, that's interesting. So going into the embassy, it's who is actually presenting to who? What is the conversation going to be?
Yeah, so it's essentially, we sent a list, a long list over of the embassies we think would be good, and we wanted obviously it to be as globally representative as we can, because obviously a lot of governments and countries still barely know what esports is, right? Let alone have acknowledged it or recognized it as a sport or as whatever. Iceland, hopefully, will be one of them. Iceland have done some great things in recent times, esports wise. Singapore as well being one, but it will depend on who we end up confirming to be a part of the embassy's tour. Like there's plenty of options, and it will be talks from the government stroke like their key partners about how they've approached esports, like the Singapore Tourism Board.
Okay, so it's more like kind of sussing out what are these governments doing with esport.
Yeah, exactly that. Like I think it was it Thailand recently that like recognized esport as a sport or whatever. And obviously all of this, their position has major implications for the industry, right? In terms of visas, in terms of being able to more easily facilitate major tournaments. Because like when players are coming into a country on an esports player visa, that's a lot easier than trying to get them in via an entertainment one or sports or whatever. So
I never thought about this. I never thought, like, this is why I love doing this podcast, and generally why I love my job, because my job is just speaking to people all the time, even if it's not the podcast. And these are the tiny little things that I find fascinating that I never would have thought of. Maybe it's insignificant, but the fact that, a country recognizing esport as a sport has implications for the industry as a whole that are generally quite positive because, for example, the visas, right? Like
exactly.
The players, they can just, come into a country because they have a job to do.
That's it, right? And not even like necessarily as a sport, but like just recognizing esports as as its own thing, right? And if that means it's classified as a sport by whatever government and that's the only way to do it, then cool. That's still, I think, going to like expedite the growth of the industry more so. Like obviously, ideally, it's recognized as what it is exactly. But yeah, like all of this stuff does matter, right? But I think the whole like, should it be in the Olympics debate is a bit tired and a bit boring and whatever. But in terms of like actual recognition by governments, that does matter for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Never considered this. Is there any, I'm sure you guys have some kind of short list of like embassies you want to visit. What are like the countries you'd love to speak to most?
Yeah, it's, as I say, like we put together a long list across the ESI team. Obviously we can't have everyone, but I think our long list was about 20 plus, and I could easily do more, right? Like especially through SEA, for example. But yeah, we're trying to get a spread of like at least one from Europe, at least one from SEA, MENA representation, NA itself as well. But yeah, let's see. I mean, like we've got the event in Singapore, so we're hoping Singapore will be one of them. And the Singapore Tourism Board has been a big supporter of esports, like bringing esports events to the country. So they've helped, I think, sponsor or at least support some of the bigger events out there. So yeah, hopefully I think that would be an interesting talk, right? But yeah, let's see. Like we'll see if there's appetite from a large amount from what we're hearing there has been. So yeah, fingers crossed we get some good ones.
So it's like a big year planned. Yeah. All right. Earlier you mentioned the WFH League. What's that about?
Yeah, so the WFH League is the work from home, win from home league, right? Which is our competition and tournament brand, which is a joint venture between us and Platform, which is a gaming bar and restaurant based in London. So the original concept was to have the WFH League as colleagues teaming up and it being company versus company.
That's okay. That's funny because I didn't know what it was called, but that's the thing I wanted to talk to you about. So it's funny. Okay, yeah. So I wanted to talk to you about this because this is so cool, because this is such a cool team building exercise. So how did this came about? Like, how did this idea come about and how does it actually work in practice?
Nicola and Tommaso and the guys that own Platform, this bar in central London, a gaming focused bar in central London for a long time now. And obviously they've got the venue, the space to facilitate that. We with ESI have got the network of contacts and companies and like the brand rep and such, I guess, industry wide. So we were talking about how to do it and such. And a lot of Platform's general clientele were people going for a drink there or some food there or play some games there with colleagues after work anyway, right? And this was pre-COVID. And so we came up with the brand, which we love, and the name, which we think is quite cool and fitting. And the point was initially for it to be something for Londoners to do after work at Platform. So exactly as you say, it's like a team building exercise. You go down there every Tuesday for a couple of months and you participate in the work from home league with colleagues, like same as like a five-a-side football tournament, right? And then COVID happened. And so we had to rethink a little bit. And we went fully online and it was good. Like we had teams paid to participate. We had some sponsors in. We broadcast all of the games on Twitch. We had casters in to cast the games and ensure it was done like professionally. And it was great. And production wise as well. We had there's no cash prizes, and that was intentional because we want it to be competitive but casual and not get too fiery or not upset too many people. But we had prizes from Noble Chairs, from Razer, and plenty more. It's been really good. Like the reception's been great, and there've been some good games. There've been some very good close games. There've been a lot of like absolute maulings as well. Clearly someone, I think that one of the Abiosh lot has a really good CSGO player, one of GG Recon.
Because they play CSGO, or is there other games as well?
Yeah, we've changed, we've chopped and changed. We've had CSGO, Rocket League, FIFA, Brawlhalla, and yeah, we're considering now which games we do next. But yeah, I think from now on it will be a hybrid model. So we'll have the online only participation, and then we'll have the optional, if you are local, you can come to platform and play from there. Because it's still been good. It's still been sociable, but obviously one of the original ideas was to make it a real social activity, right? And like go down to platform something.
Yeah. And is it like a because it's a work thing, so it's your friends from work that you're playing. Are they on your team? Are you playing against each other, or are you playing other companies?
Yeah, so it's sorry, I should have been clear.
That's why I'm here, to ask the questions.
It's good. It's company versus company. So we've had like Barclays, the bank, have played I think in each campaign so far, and that they've been playing Rivalry, the bookmaker. They've been playing a staff team from Twitch. They've been playing numerous other like guild. The esports team had a staff team.
They have their guild.
Yeah, exactly. Siemens Technology, they had a team. Like it's been really good. Like Barclays, what we found we've run it 3 times now, and by the 3rd season or campaign, Barclays internally apparently hosted their own tournament to determine who would participate and who would play.
No shit.
Which is great. That's exactly what we want, right? And we're looking at how we further develop it. And maybe that's something we do for companies or such. But it's been really good. It's been good fun. We raised a bunch of money for special effects, like the gaming charity. So
wow. That's kind of like reminds me of, you know, how, I don't know, in America, you got high school football, and there's like, you know, famous people in the high school football. And it's kind of this, you know, you got the famous people from these company gaming squads. Wow. Now, I am curious, how many women are involved in these teams? Is it mainly dudes, or is there some women?
Yeah, I'd say it's be a good exercise to determine exactly like the numbers. So basically, we send out we sell the spots to the teams, and then the teams can select their squad. And like for Rocket League, when it's 3v3, their squad is 6 players, and like they choose who those people will be. For like Square Enix, the publisher, they had a team. They've had a team in a couple of the campaigns actually, and I think theirs was fairly even split, male female as one example in terms of their players. I'd say it was, at least in CSGO, it was more heavily weighted male, which I guess is probably unsurprising with given CSGO's like general audience or core audience. But yeah, something we have considered, like how like one of like the core pillars of it is to ultimately introduce more people to esports, right? And make it as comfortable and inclusive an environment as possible. And that includes everything, regardless of what minority, through to people that are just brand new to the space and industry. So yeah, it would be good to see more.
Because it's an interesting topic for me, because like for me, gaming has been part of my life since I was 6 or 7, you know, with the first Nintendo and Mario Bros. Like that's, you know, and it's been never ending. And what's been an interesting experience for me is that growing up in Australia, the fact that I was a gamer wasn't super surprising to people. It's a very different society than in Poland. Like some people were, but mainly people were like, oh yeah, she's a gamer, like whatever. There's lots of girls who game. But in Poland, like when I got this PlayStation for myself at Christmas, there was a lot of like, oh, that's surprising.
Really?
Yeah, it was surprising. And I mean, look, I'm 37, so it's like I'm an older millennial, you know. So this is the other thing, you know, demographics wise. Who is in these company games? Are they mainly millennials, or are they, you know, tapping into Gen Z already?
Probably mostly in terms of our players, right? Like it was probably mostly like the people in there, maybe like early to mid 20s, like early 30s, like through to like 40 odd, I think was probably around the oldest.
Okay, so like old Gen Z and early millennials, let's say.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was the core player base for us. And as we said, like and I guess that's probably somewhat representative of like the esports industry specifically. Like whilst we try and still do that, we had Siemens and others, right? But obviously when we put the announcement out like, oh, we're like bringing in new teams for the next campaign, a lot of the companies that are keen right away are the esports companies. I guess unsurprising because they're the ones who work in the space and probably were like failed players or didn't quite make it or just retired or whatever, right? And they want to give it a go because it's games they play anyway most days. And the esports, I'd say the only stats to back this up, but the esports industry, like the general esports industry, like executive or marketing person or whoever is younger, I would say, than most industries on average, and probably a bit younger than video games more broadly even.
What has been the most surprising company? Because it's not surprising when esport companies do this. What has been the company that surprised you the most that had or wanted to have an esport team in this project?
Yeah, it's a good question. I said the one I've mentioned, to be fair, to some degree, would be Barclays. But I guess Barclays would be the one that, I guess it wasn't that surprising in that they've, locally at least in the UK, they've been very active in terms of sponsoring events and being involved and like being active in the industry and like in the scene. So I guess not that surprising in a way, but still, I think that's the most like stand out.
Because we have a stereotype about bankers, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. And like we were, I won't name them, but what we've tried to do with Work From Home League and we'll continue to try and do is that develop these like corporate rivalries and play on that. So we were trying to get like 2 bookmakers, which we did. We were trying to get 2 banks and we almost got a second big bank and they couldn't get like sign off because like branding stuff with banks obviously takes a while and it didn't work out in the end, but hopefully we'll get them next time.
Right. So you guys are like the evil reality TV producers who cause beefs between the stars. That's what you're trying to do basically.
Yeah, exactly. And that we wanted like Blast, the tournament operator had a team. And we were trying to get like an ESL team, and we want to get like 2 of every animal, right? Like 2 of every type of company, and like create those stories and narratives based off that. And obviously, it'd be very like tongue in cheek and like done over the top on purpose, because no one really cares about these rivalries. But I think it would be fun. So yeah, that's what we're aiming for more of.
That's fun, totally. Who doesn't like a bit of competition?
Exactly.
Oh, I love that. That's cool. All right, listen, I want to end with my favorite question that I ask everybody at the end. What advice would you give to your younger self?
That's a good question. What age? What age are we talking?
You pick. It doesn't matter. Like it could be like the age where you were the most, I don't know, I don't want to project my own stuff, but you know, maybe the time that you were like the most lost or troubled or having a difficult moment, you know? That Sam. Talk to that Sam.
Yeah. Well, I guess you'll work it out in the end, right? Like I did history at university. No idea what I was going to do with that degree. If I could go back, I would.
It's like philosophy. It's useless.
But it was interesting. Wrote some great books. Like not really anything out of it directly, but certainly don't go to university in the UK. Go abroad. UK. unbelievably unnecessarily expensive. And I was there before the higher fees, so I definitely wouldn't go now in this country. But university was a good experience, I would say that, even despite that.
Wait, hang on. So you guys don't have like a HEX thing where you do you have to like pay for it as you're attending, or do you pay for it after? Like you pay back?
Yeah. So the student loan company, which is a private company, gives you a lovely loan with a lovely interest rate, and you're just paying it off for the rest of the time, basically. But
yeah, Australia's got the same thing. Like, because we generally, colonized. Commonwealth country. Do you know what's funny about the Commonwealth? No one outside of the Commonwealth knows that the Commonwealth exists.
Yeah. Well, Commonwealth Games esports now, right? That could be a whole podcast on its own.
When I tell people that there's a Commonwealth Games, they don't know what I'm talking about. And like for us, it's like the second Olympics. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a big deal, right? No one cares, though.
And no one knows that it's a thing. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, there's a group of countries that England colonized, and now we're in this group together.
We all get together, and it's safe and patriotic.
Yeah.
So it is weird, isn't it?
And no one else knows. I love it. But back to younger Sam. So the first bit of advice is fuck British universities with no offense.
Yeah, basically, but not university generally. Like I'd have got my dad lived in and we lived there when I was little. Dad lived in Berlin for years and years. I wish I'd gone there. Like university education, very affordable, great city, blah blah blah, culture and such. And travel. Like say, I'd travelled after university, as I said, and like lived at traveled on SEA, lived in Taiwan for a bit, and Hong Kong, and Lisbon for a little while, but mostly in Asia. But I would have loved to have done that more and done university abroad. And I had no idea what I was going to do as well. I tried to become a paramedic for a while. I applied to become a social worker on this expedited course thing twice and failed and was knocked back twice. If I'd have got onto that, I'd be a social worker now and not doing whatever I do esports wise. So yeah, funny how the cards fall, isn't it?
You know what? I had 1,000 jobs, really. And what I love about it, I really did. When I look back, I think I've had 30 different jobs. And what I know now is they have all led me to this moment now where I have this completely random bunch of stuff that I do, and I really love it, So I think every experience is just another building block that we have.
Exactly.
So in a nutshell, your advice to your younger self is don't go to university in England, do it abroad.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's just ultimately travel. I did a fair amount, but travel even more, right?
Yeah.
And you'll figure it out in the end, because it certainly was. I had no idea what I was going to do when I was at uni. After uni, for a good few years, kind of fell into esports almost through the journalism side.
How ridiculous is it that at 18 they're expecting us to choose?
Exactly.
What? What is the system? Is ridiculous. I had no idea. If someone told me 10 years ago that I would be doing what I'm doing now, no way.
Exactly. And I went to a grammar school, and you were expected to go to university, right? It was kind of, you were prepared to go to university. You weren't prepared for the real world, really. And it was
taxes?
Weird. Yeah, no idea. And still barely do. Thank God for accountants. And mine's great. I love them. But exactly that.
Yeah.
It was seen as kind of weird at our school if you were not going, or you'd failed if you considered not going to university. And also then it was kind of which UK university you're going to go to. There wasn't really so much help or even support or thought put into going abroad.
So it was weird if you weren't going to university?
Yeah.
That's funny, because I often think that Australia mirrors the UK, and in many ways it does. But in Australia, if you leave school, high school, no big deal. If you don't go to uni, no big deal. No one ever thinks about it. I actually quit high school when I was 15. It was the legal age. I mean, then I was at uni at 16 because I'm a smart ass and I know how to rig the system. But that's another story. So it's interesting that it doesn't mirror that. Australia has a completely different culture about that.
Yeah, I mean, that was explicitly, so that was a grammar school. that specifically, which is not private, to be clear, but like you do, we do like the 11 plus when you're 11, and then you get into a school that is, I don't know, differently positioned.
Okay, so grammar schools are a little bit different. Yeah. I mean, I went to a fancy public school, but still the general vibe is a bit different. All right, let's sign off. So Sam, thank you so much for today. It was a great chat. I'm really excited. And I feel like we could have another 50 million podcasts. So
yeah, no doubt.
I'll get my people to get in touch with your people and see what we can do. Thank you so much.
Please do. We'll do the David one. Nice pleasure. Thank you.